Hello everyone, thank you for coming. If I speak in English, who cannot, अगर मैं अंग्रेजी में बात करूँ कौन नहीं समझ सकता? कोई है जो नहीं समझ सकता? Let's start with a prayer.
वक्रतुंड महाकाय कोटि सूर्य समप्रभः निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा.
What I'd like you to do is spend about 2 or 3 minutes. Try and find someone that you don't know, ideally. And ideally, if you're not a student, find a student. So you have to move about a little bit, I'm afraid. And spend about 2 or 3 minutes talking to each other about what kind of concerns you think students may have in the field of mental health, any questions you may have today, what you'd like to get out of today, what kind of issues there might be that students experience in this field. Okay, over to you. Give you 2 or 3 minutes.
आपको तो मैं जानता हूँ, आप किसी और को पकड़ो भाई, आप स्टूडेंट भी नहीं, absolutely, लेकिन आप क्या मैं स्टूडेंट हो सकता हूँ, so I'll just go and speak to some students.
You are a student, mate.
Now I need a volunteer to come and do some writing on this board. What's your name? Anjali. Thank you, Anjali. Can we just give Anjali a round of applause? So thankfully we've got so many people here, which is amazing. So we won't be able to go through everyone, I'm afraid, but I'll be around afterwards, and it would be great to hear what you came up with. But if we could just have some people maybe shout out, that would be great. If you maybe put your hands up before you're shouting out, then I can point to you. So we had competition, and then we had peer pressure. Thank you so much, Anjali. So that's brilliant, thank you so much. That's already, you've done my presentation, now I don't have to do anything. So that's really good. You've covered a variety of illnesses that we classify as illnesses, a variety of problems that people may face, good things as well about being a student, and just issues about being at that stage in life. So that's brilliant. And what I'm going to do is try my best to cover as much of that as possible. So just to introduce myself, I've already been introduced briefly, so I'm Devika and I'm from Nottingham. I'm a consultant psychiatrist, which means that I'm a medical doctor, but then I've specialised in psychiatry, so medicine of the mind. And I'm a consultant, which means I've basically reached that stage in the hierarchy of our training. And then within that, I've specialised in something called medical psychotherapy, which means I'm trained in a variety of structured treatments to try and change the mind and then change the brain. So this is a theme I want to use during this talk, how we can use our mind to change our brain. Currently, my main NHS role is in South West London and St George's Mental Health NHS Trust as clinical lead for a personality disorder service called the SUN Service User Network. I'm also a psychotherapy tutor, mainly in cognitive behavioural therapy for South West London. I'm also, as you mentioned, involved in setting up services around the country, mainly in the SUN or Patient Support Network. So a couple of years ago I set them up in Oxley's Trust, which is Bromley, Bexley and Greenwich, and currently I'm working with Berkshire. Also have my private practice, but something that I don't do anymore but I have done, I wanted to mention, I was consultant psychiatrist for one of the main parts of University of London as well, for Queen Mary University of London. So I have, as well as in my NHS work, I also have experience of working in a university as well. Before we do that, I just want to get a feel for who's here as well. And I recognise lots of people, so thank you for the support. Lots of students here. Is everyone from Nottingham? Is there anyone from outside Nottingham? Yes? Yogesh is from Leicester. Can you just name where you're from? People had their hands up here. Whereabouts have you come from? Oh, sorry.
I'm from Oxford.
Oxford, right. Studying here, brilliant. Welcome.
I'm from London, studying at university.
Okay, welcome, London, studying here. And
We live in Bromsgrove.
in Brunswick, can I say abroad as well? Can I say Denmark? We've got international talk happening. So welcome everyone. So I know a number of people have asked me if I could do a series of talks on this, and if I'm asked to, then obviously that would be my pleasure and my honour to do that. So today I've been asked to specifically talk about student mental health, which is a very vast topic. We could talk for months and we wouldn't cover everything. So I'm just going to try and cover really quickly the main things that I think you may want to know today, but I'm very conscious that there'll be lots of other questions. I'll be around afterwards as well. If you'd like to know more, then I'm always happy to share that. The main things I really want to cover today, which is kind of what you've covered, are what are the difficulties that most students have today, and also what you can do about it. And one thing you may have noticed in this list, the problems aren't unique to students. I think anyone of any age can experience most of these problems, so hopefully everyone will find this relevant. So first of all, just going really, really quickly through some of the problems that people may experience. So let's start with stress. Nobody mentioned stress as such, but well, you did, exam stress. But stress is a really vague term, isn't it? It basically means that the demands placed on us are greater than our ability to cope. That's all it means, really. And it's normal to feel stress, isn't it? I think, is there anyone here who's never felt stressed? Can you put your hand up? That's due to that position. You've never felt stress. Brilliant, okay. So maybe we can talk after. I can learn something from you, that would be nice. But it's interesting that everyone else has experienced stress, yes? Okay, and it's normal to experience stress. And in terms of what can cause stress, you've named so many things here. You've named exams, you've social inclusion, peer pressure, competition, just a few things, money. It could be mentioned stress in the family, bereavement, exams mentioned, changes were mentioned, so changing school, when you go from primary to secondary school, go from secondary school to university, move house. Even for the younger, usually younger kids, if you have a sibling born, that's stressful. Suddenly your world has changed completely. So, there are lots and lots of stresses that we as humans have to go through. However, stress can be bigger as well. It can be something that we call a trauma. And also, most people, by the time we're maybe in our 20s, we've experienced some significant trauma in life. And trauma, unfortunately, that's the nature of our lives. And trauma is not necessarily what you may think. So you may think, that person, why are they so stressed? I don't think they went through trauma. It's what we experience as traumatic. So it may be that you witness a trauma. You aren't actually part of it yourself. You're not the recipient. You witness it. It may be bullying, somebody mentioned. It may be domestic violence. It may be, so even if your parents are physically violent, that can lead to significant trauma on you. It could be various types of abuse. So if somebody's beaten you up, physically harmed you, somebody's touched you inappropriately, if somebody's emotionally aggressive towards you, saying horrible things to you, if somebody's ignoring you, not looking after your needs, your parents aren't feeding you, for example, or clothing you, or you're not getting a chance to wash, these are all abuse. Rape as well, I've mentioned that, because there's a growing awareness about that. But one thing that's really important to mention here is, if you've been the victim of any of these, or you are the victim, often people don't normally talk about these things. Why is that? Can anyone just put their hand up and say why, maybe?
Shame.
Shame, thank you, exactly. And that's exactly the word I wanted to hear. And unfortunately, firstly, shame is hugely damaging. And secondly, if you're on the receiving end of any of these, you are not the one who is in any position of shame. It's the person who's done it to you. It's really important to hear that. In my field of work, we'll often say the person who does it also has their own issues why they're doing this. But I think just for today, if you can take it that if you're on the receiving end of any of these, you do not deserve shame. So now I'm going to, because I've been called here as a psychiatrist, I'm just going to go through a few illnesses that you may have heard of. I'm not going to spend too long on them because I want it to be relevant to you today. But again, I'm available any other time. So we deal with things called anxiety disorders, which may include, which anxiety people have mentioned. Again, anxiety is normal, but we call them illnesses or disorders where maybe you're worrying excessively all the time, called that generalized anxiety disorder. Maybe you're afraid of going into public extremely, and it really affects your lives. It may be that you have something called obsessive compulsive disorder, where maybe you get thoughts that you can't get rid of, they're disturbing you, and then you have to do things in particular in response to them to get rid of anxiety. It may be that we come across depression, which was mentioned. So we all feel sad time to time, that's normal. But depression, if you're particularly for more than 2 weeks feeling very low, not sleeping normally for you, not eating normally for you, maybe even getting thoughts of not really seeing a future, hating yourself, wanting to end your life, these will being very tearful, we'll start thinking, do you perhaps have an illness? Bipolar disorder people may have heard of. Have you heard of, that's quite in the media at the moment. You heard about that? So it's where people not only have quite low moods, but they also have really high moods. Which sounds really fun, but it's not. It can be too much of a good thing isn't good. So it can make you quite distressed and disturbed to be extremely euphoric. You may have heard of the word manic. And also it can make you quite unsafe as well. Eating disorders can be very common in young people. So it may be that you don't eat enough, and you have a fear of being fat, or you exercise too much, or it may be that you binge eat a lot, and you maybe take laxatives to try and keep your weight down. Or it's also possible, mainly young people, the main eating disorder we see is obesity. So eating way too much, often through comfort eating. There's also something that's been in the media a lot, personality disorder or issues. We don't normally diagnose this in people under 18, but basically what it means, it's a horrible name, I don't like it, it's my main field of work, but I'm trying to get the name changed. But essentially what we're referring to is people who've had those really traumatic childhoods. Remember we just talked about trauma a moment ago. But then it leads to significant difficulties in their relating to other people, in their emotions, in their thinking. And then psychosis. Has anyone heard of schizophrenia? Yeah? So it's where we kind of lose touch with reality to a different level. We're all kind of out of touch with reality a bit, as I'll come to in a bit, but this is to another level where maybe people might say we're hearing things that other people can't hear, or seeing things other people can't see, or imagining things are happening that maybe aren't. So that can be really, really distressing, and that all of these we can help, all of these. Kind of like dreamland, but I think we're all in dreamland. This is a different level. Now, just to talk about self-harm and suicide, this is a graph of the suicide rates per 100,000 people, young people, from the age of from 2004 to last year. Now, actually, if you look at that graph, there isn't a significant change in the rates of suicide. Before that, if we look back to maybe 1920s, 1930s onwards, there was actually more suicide than in this country. Globally, suicide rates are actually decreasing. However, we have to remember that the people who collect these statistics may not be collecting them in exactly the same way now as they were maybe 50 years ago or 70 years ago. Also, there are slight ups and downs, but actually there are only a difference of about 2 or 3 people per 100,000. I've been trying to look at why the rates of suicide were higher in this country in kind of mid-1900s, and I think it's mainly because there was a Great Depression here, there were wars, and also there was poisonous gas was available very widely. These days these things are more secure, and so suicide rates are more controlled. However, self-harm and suicide are still significant issues. In young people, suicide is the main cause of death today in the UK. The reason why it's the main cause, but it's less than in older people, is because older people have other reasons to die as well, whereas young people mainly don't die from other things, so mainly they die from suicide. And why do people do this? Well, self-harm can be when we're very distressed, we want a way to release tension. And self-harm can be that. It's still very, very unpleasant, but it can be a way to actually release that tension, not kill ourselves, basically. The problem is, often you may have heard of people saying, oh, they cut themselves, they're attention seeking. But actually, if somebody self-harms, they're significantly more likely to kill themselves. So that's why it's very important to bear in mind. It's actually not attention seeking, it's a cry for help, a genuine cry for help. Suicide obviously is very serious. So both of them are very serious. Suicide, if you think about it, often when things get very bad, if you think of your worst case scenario, you've lost all your support, all your hope, all future, you can't see a future, you can't see anything, you're totally isolated, everything you can see is bleak. Sometimes leaving this world seems like a better option. Should we talk about it? Now, some people are afraid that if we talk about suicide with young people, it will poison their minds and put that in their minds. Evidence shows that's not true, that's completely false. It does not increase rates of suicide to talk about suicide with young people, so it's really important to talk about it. And if you're feeling that way, it's also important. It's nothing, as I mentioned earlier, shame doesn't belong in this area. Now, drugs and alcohol, they're a big thing. Young people are the biggest market for drug dealers. So can people just name the main drugs that are on the market today? Because I know that they change year to year very rapidly. So maybe the students are here. I'm not going to think but you must have heard of them on the circuit, because I know that they're available very readily these days. So what are the main ones that are maybe offered to you or discussed in your universities today? Anyone just shout them out, if you're okay? Pardon? Marijuana, cannabis, yeah, very widely available. Ecstasy, MDMA, yes. Cocaine, yeah. Anything else? Mephedrone, I think, yeah. Okay, so they're probably the main ones, and alcohol especially. So because that is not illegal to drink, so that's easily available. So the thing is, all these drugs work on the brain. They actually impact your brain. And they actually have good effects. And you might think, why am I saying that? But if drugs were just bad for you, would anyone take them? Yeah, you wouldn't take drugs if they were just bad for you. So they're good things. You feel good, you can feel stimulated, you can feel happy. But think about why drug dealers give you drugs in the first place. Sorry? Addictive? To control you. Anything else? Anyone? We have the students? Any ideas why drug dealers give drugs in the first place?
To make money.
To make money, yeah. Money is the main object, definitely. Anything else?
To seduce.
To seduce, yes. Has anyone met a... Okay. I haven't in my life come across a drug dealer who takes drugs. Just think about that. Okay? So when you think about when the drug dealer is trying to convince you how good this drug is, just ask them if they take it. Now, anyone who knows me knows I hate social media, but I'm not going to stand here and preach against it. I think it's very good in moderation, like most things in balance are very good. Evidence actually is quite mixed. I've been looking up research evidence for this talk on social media as to its contribution to mental illness. It's mixed. Some research papers say it does increase depression, social, than to go out and meet people in real life. So it can be confusing whether this data is accurate or not. But so like most things, there's good things and bad things about social media. But if I just give you my personal experience from my work, say if I see somebody with depression, they think so when we're depressed, we don't feel good about ourselves. We think, depressed people, when you're depressed, you often think, do you think you look good when you're feeling sad? No, I think you look good. Do you think that you're having a really good time? No. Do you think other people are having a good time? No. Sorry? Yes. Yeah? How many no's? How many yeses? Yeah. So generally, when we're feeling bad about something, so none of this is, black or white, it's all different for different people, but generally, when we're feeling bad about ourselves, we think everyone else is feeling really good. They're really good looking, they're having brilliant holidays, they've got lots of friends, they're really happy. So when somebody's depressed, if I look at my patients generally, but it's applicable to all of us, they don't want to go out of the house. What do? Turn on their phone, look at an app, it's readily available, go on social media, go on Facebook, see, oh, my friends are all having really good times, I'm miserable. But tell me, how many of you put photos of yourself on Facebook looking really bad, miserable, having a bad day? Yeah? So it's fake. You can call it fake book. So social media is basically, because if you think about it, and there's a good panorama documentary on this, which you can Google, called Smartphones, the Dark Side. These companies like Facebook, Google, the apps, get paid according to how much time you spend on the app. So they need to addict you to the app. They need to gain money. It's kind of like the drug dealers. They need to get your attention. So they're going to find ways to keep you hooked. So what I say is, I'm not saying don't use social media. What I'm saying is just be careful that the people who actually create these sites and apps are there to control you and make money. So try and use that for your benefit. Don't get hooked. So the person who actually invented the Facebook like button, you know, the like, which actually got addicted to the like button and had to leave Facebook. So addicted to something that she created herself. So if you look at Facebook and you think, I got some likes today, fine. I didn't get any likes today, that's okay as well. I'm okay. Carry on using. But if it's, I got some likes today, I'm wonderful. I didn't get likes today, I'm going to stay in bed, I'm really bad. My worth is attached to it. Then just review it. That's not so healthy. Right, that's a bit about the negativity. Now I'm going to try and talk about positivity, the solutions. So as I've probably hinted so far, is it normal, whatever you're suffering with, if you're suffering, or somebody close to you is suffering with? It can be, as we've discussed. I know one person, pretty much said they've never been stressed. Has anyone never been angry? Who's never been angry?
No one.
Who's never been worried? Did you say you've never been angry?
No,
Sorry?
it wasn't me, it was him.
Oh, okay. He's never been. That's okay. That's actually, I'm going to come to that later on. That's really important. So we've all been anxious. Most of us have been stressed. Has anyone never been sad? Yeah. So it's normal. It doesn't mean you have a mental illness if you experience these. It's completely normal. We're all on a spectrum. As doctors, we have to create what's normal and what's abnormal so we know what to treat. Just like, and if you look at your iron levels in the blood, somebody in a lab somewhere decided this is normal, this is abnormal. But actually, that's what they've decided from research and to kind of have this framework. But actually, who defines what's normal and what's abnormal? And actually, these days in young people, it's become almost fashionable to label people with mental illness even when they don't have it, to avoid what can just be a normal part of life. So maybe somebody's not doing that well in school, so let's label them with ADHD, attention, make them hyperactive and so on. But on the other hand, if you have an illness, it's really good that we can get these labels sometimes because it means you get the right treatment as well. Talking about normality of anxiety, if I just give you an example from the Bhagavad Gita. So I'm not going to go into the Sanskrit, I'm just going to give you one interpretation in English. So this is from chapter 1, verse 28 onwards. So basically, Arjun's saying to Krishnji, seeing all my friends here, standing here, eager to fight, my limbs are failing, so my arms aren't working properly, my legs aren't working properly, my mouth is dry, my body's shaking, I've got goosebumps, my hair stands on end, I've got goosebumps, my body quivers, I'm shaky, I can't hold the bow, the Gandhi properly, so I can't hold this properly, my skin is burning, I can't even stand, my mind's kind of all over the place. And I can see bad things. I don't see any good in doing whatever I'm supposed to do. I don't see good in doing my duty. Can anyone relate to that? Can anyone relate to those symptoms?
It's kind of panic situation.
Yeah, panic, definitely. Anxiety. Yeah? Would you agree with that, most people? That when you're feeling anxious, you get dry mouth, can't really hold things properly, you might get goosebumps, might feel shaky. Yeah or no? Yeah? And if you feel really depressed, then you might say, I just don't want to do this. I just can't face doing whatever I need to do now. Yeah? Can people relate to that or not? Yeah? So again, it's normal. So we can say from that, we can take from that it's since the beginning of humankind that we've had these problems. And even Krishnji had to speak a whole book, the Bhagavad Gita, just to convince Arjuna. So, if we need a bit of help, what's the shame in that? So really important to remember you're not alone. Really important. So many of my patients come to me. My main service in the NHS is in groups, which I really value. Initially, I didn't like it because it was actually a money-saving thing for the NHS. Actually, one thing, strength is, as soon as a patient walks in and sees that other patients have the same problems as them or similar, 50% of their suffering goes away, because you're not the only one. If we're actually all open, I'm sure we've all experienced some of these problems sometimes. Some of this we've already shared. So what can you do to help yourself? So one thing is you can start writing a diary or a journal. Some people find it easy, find it helpful at the end of the day, just to write a bit of what they've experienced today, what their thoughts are, what their feelings are, just to have it out there on paper. Can release emotions, get our thoughts in perspective and make us feel better. Another thing is talking to someone you trust. So diary is like somebody you trust. It's your secret. But also you can talk to a friend, a family member. It may not be your parents, it may be a distant family member, maybe somebody in the community, our Acharya-ji, or some uncle-ji, auntie-ji, somebody that you trust here. It may be in school, it may be a nurse or a teacher. At university, it may be a tutor. So pretty much anyone that you can trust. If you can't find anyone, then there are organizations such as Childline that you can contact. You can phone, I think they have, these days you can text and all kinds of things. Samaritans are very helpful as well. You can contact your GP. And don't think that if you're under 18, then your GP has to tell your parents everything. They don't. Depending on your, basically, ability to understand things and make decisions for yourself and so on, your GP may not have to disclose what you tell them. In school, you may have a counsellor. Most universities these days, like I was saying, I've worked as one of these. Most universities have a psychiatrist these days. Does Nottingham University have one? Do you know? Yes. So we know that. Is there like a counselling service? Yeah, brilliant. And the government's put a lot of money into that to get universities to have counselling services and psychiatrists. This Talk to Frank is a website, is a company helping people with drugs. Papyrus helps young people with suicide. And I really can't overemphasize this. If you're desperate in any way, it's okay not only to call 101, which is one of the semi-emergency numbers, but also 999. You just dial 999. If you're feeling suicidal, you don't need to think, oh, but this isn't an emergency, I'm not having a heart attack. It's an emergency, okay? So it's okay to dial 999. It's their problem to deal with it after that. If you're feeling really low, you can dial 999. So try and keep yourself busy. And that might just sound really kind of vague, but it's actually evidence-based. Keeping yourself busy reduces mental health problems significantly. However, not too busy. If you've got exams and things, then you're probably saying, I'm stressed, I've got too much to do. So then you may need to moderate and cut down. But make sure that in your plan of whatever you do things you enjoy. Make sure that you do things that make you feel good too. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. Helping others can be really good for your health as well. So helping others can take you out of your problems. It can make you realize that other people have problems as well. And also, it can actually make you put your problems in perspective. And it gives you a sense of power and empowerment that you're capable of bringing a smile to somebody else's face. Spending time with animals and nature, anything that God made, can make us feel good as well. And also exercise. Evidence shows that it releases serotonin, a chemical in our brains, which is the same chemical that's released, that's increased with antidepressants and with chocolate. So exercise, even initially, can make you feel bad, but overall it makes you feel better, and it actually improves your brain. I'm going to ask our Acharya-ji to just spend a couple of minutes just talking a bit about our traditions, because I think that's really important. That our background must have held reasons for the lifestyle that our ancestors had, essentially, and that obviously preserved their mental health to a significant degree. So just ask him to just say a couple of words.
हम हिंदी में बोलेंगे, ठीक है? स्टूडेंट मेंटल हेल्थ पे बात हो रही है, सो कितने स्टूडेंट्स बैठे हुए हैं आंसर? सब लोग ना जो अभी कॉलेज यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ रहे हैं सिर्फ वही। एक कॉमन सी बात है, हमने हमेशा देखा हुआ, आप थैंक यू, आप जब कोई कंपनी ज्वाइन करते हैं, नौकरी के लिए जाते हैं, तो आपको एक चेक लिस्ट मिलती है कि आपको ये करना है, ये नहीं करना है, isn't it? आपको गाइडलाइन मिलती है कि नहीं मिलती कि ये करना है, ऐसे करना है, आपके टास्क से हैं वगैरह वगैरह। बट जब हम स्कूल कॉलेज ज्वाइन करते हैं तो हमको क्या टास्क मिलता है? इन शॉर्ट, डायरेक्टली अगर पूछे व्हाट इज द डेफिनेशन ऑफ स्टूडेंट, हु कैन टेल? डेफिनेशन ऑफ स्टूडेंट। If you don't know the definition, what will you do? हाँ, विद्यार्थी के लक्षण। जब तक डॉक्टर एग्जामाइन नहीं करेगा कि सिम्टम्स क्या है, वो दवाई कैसे देगा, फाइंड आउट कैसे करेगा इसको रियल प्रॉब्लम क्या है। डॉक्टर के पास आप जाएंगे तो ब्लड टेस्ट, तरह तरह के टेस्ट करेंगे, वो सिम्टम्स देख करके डिसाइड करेगा दिस इज द मेन प्रॉब्लम। सही बात है। इसी तरह आपके सिम्टम्स दिखने चाहिए कि कोई भी बोल दे कि दिस पर्सन इज द स्टूडेंट। सुभाषितानी में लिखा हुआ है, काक चेष्टा वको ध्यानम स्वान निद्रा तथैवचा अल्पाहारी गृह त्यागी विद्यार्थी नाम पंच लक्षण। दीज आर 5 सिम्टम्स फॉर द स्टूडेंट्स। काक चेष्टा, आपकी चेष्टा, आपकी इच्छा कैसी होनी चाहिए, आपका टारगेट सेटअप कैसे होना चाहिए। आपने कौवा देखा हुआ है, क्रो? एक जगह कभी नहीं देखता, लेकिन उसका टारगेट सेट होता है। फोकस 100% नहीं होगा, नजर चारों तरफ होगी।
So your focus should be like a crow, really direct. And if you're on your aim, so if you're a student, we're just discussing mentioning the 5 main things that are listed as features or things that you can see in a student. So one of them is having your focus on your aim.
कौवे की क्वालिटी होती है, वो चारों तरफ देखेगा, लेकिन फोकस एक जगह रहेगा।
So even if you look all around, you don't lose your focus on your aim.
काक चेष्टा बको ध्यान, ये तो चेष्टा हो गई। ध्यान कैसे होना चाहिए, कंसंट्रेशन कैसे होना चाहिए। काक चेष्टा बको, बगुला कौन समझता है अंग्रेजी में? क्रैब। आपने उसको मछली पकड़ते हुए देखा होगा। एक मछली पकड़ने के लिए 2-2 घंटे तक एक पांव से खड़ा रहेगा, इतना कंसंट्रेशन चाहिए।
So concentration like a crane that will stand for 2 hours just to catch one fish. So we've got focus, concentration.
स्वान निद्रा तथैवचा, नींद कैसी होनी चाहिए, कितना सोना चाहिए?
Sleep like a
dog.
Like a dog.
आपने कभी किसी कुत्ते को जगाया, जग जा भाई, मॉर्निंग हो गई, तुमको वॉक पे लेके जाना है, दोपहर हो गई, तुमको खाना देना है, प्लीज गेट अप। कभी किसी कुत्ते को किसी ने बेल करके जगाया?
So sleep like a dog. We've got focus, concentration, sleep.
मतलब जगाने की जरूरत नहीं पड़नी चाहिए, अपने आप जगिए, इतनी लाइट स्लीप लीजिए। काक चेष्टा वको ध्यानम स्वान निद्रा तथैवचा अल्पाहारी। और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट रोल है फूड का, भोजन कितना और कैसे करना है। अल्पाहारी, हमेशा कम भोजन करें।
So limited food, limited.
और दूसरी बात, गृह त्यागी। गृह त्यागी का थोड़ा सा,
So kind of not so involved in family matters, so you can focus on your studies.
I think it's more about the luxury. Move away from luxury.
ये उल्टा हो गया है आजकल। आजकल हो गया है फिल्म, सॉरी बोलना नहीं चाहिए लेकिन बोल देते हैं, फिल्म चेष्टा इश्क ध्यान। अजगरी निद्रा तथैवचा, अजगर की तरह सोते हैं, कोई भी कितना पीट के पानी डाल के जाए, कोई जगने को राजी नहीं है। अल्पाहारी की जगह क्या है, मुर्गाहारी। गृह त्यागी की जगह वो ग्रह भोगी हो जाते हैं, मतलब अपोजिट है टोटल। और दूसरी सबसे बड़ी बात, एक जो एग्जाम स्ट्रेस है, उस पर बोल सकते हैं थोड़ा सा? ओके। सो क्या होता है ना कि ये सारी चीजें हमको हमारे वैदिक सिद्धांत से हमको मिले हैं कि हमको विद्यार्थी जीवन कैसे जीना है। सही समय तुलसीदास जी ने रघुवंश महाकाव्य में लिखा है, सही समय भ्यस्त विद्यानाम यौवने विशेषणाम वार्धके मुनिवृत्ति नाम योगे नान्ते तनुत्यजा, हमको किस एज में कैसे क्या करना है। तो शैशवे अभ्यस्त विद्या नाम, शैशव काल में मतलब 24 वर्ष तक की उम्र में हमको मात्र विद्याओं का अभ्यास करना है।
So basically, until the age of 24, studies should be our main focus. So it's prescribed at different stages of our life what we should be doing. Thank you so much.
Can I perhaps add a little to it? That analogy of the crow is actually quite interesting. So, you focus, but you also look around. And what that really means for all of us, the students even more importantly, is to have open-mindedness. Because that is what helps you move forward. So you focus, but you be open-minded. And that's another addition to what it is to me.
So thank you. So it might feel like, why are we talking about this? But it's because, remember, these are our roots. So there's a reason we're here, so something must have gone right there for us to exist today. The probability of any of us being here is like 1 in, I don't know, somebody calculated it, it's like in something trillion or something. So the chances of each of us existing. So we're all very precious, and our whole, because if you think about it, your whole lineage existed. Not even one point, any generation was wiped out for each person here, for each of you to exist. So what did our ancestors do that worked? So these are the kind of things. So focus with an open mind, but staying focused on your aim. Concentration, eating less, and staying focused on studying and sleeping light. But also remembering that prescribed at different stages of life, different things are prescribed. But life doesn't always happen that way. It's just something for us to be informed about. So what else can we do? We can relax, and I'm not going to say what you should do to relax, because it's different for different people. Some people it's puzzles, some people it's studying, some people it's lying down and sleeping, some people it's exercise, music, it could be all kinds of things. Meditation, that's one thing, praying, and the Bhagavad Gita chapter 6 actually covers this in huge extent. If you have time to have a look, it's very, very interesting. I was going to quote some shloka, but then realised there's no point. I'm going to just quote the whole thing. Now, you might be thinking, I'm a doctor here, why am I talking about meditation? But I'm going to explain why I am. And maybe just as a taster for that, just to mention that the NHS now prescribes meditation. So that might just lead into why I'm talking about meditation so much. But Bhagavad Gita, in terms of our culture, Bhagavad Gita, other scriptures refer to meditation a lot. There's the Patanjali Yoga Sutra meditation style. But I'm going to talk about mindfulness purely because that is the type which I'm sure has come from Hindu scriptures, but it's the kind that Western society has adopted and brought into the NHS, brought into mainstream Western medicine, Western society. So that's why I'm going to talk about that. It doesn't mean it's any more important, it's just I have the evidence. So what I'd like you to do is, we're just going to try a taster for a couple of minutes. So what I'd like you to do is, if you're comfortable, I'd like you to close your eyes for a couple of minutes. If you can close your eyes for 2 minutes or so, whoever feels comfortable. And then what I'd like you to do is I want you to just focus on your breath. There's going to be other things happening around you. There's my voice, there's probably worries, thoughts. You're probably thinking, what time is dinner? What's for dinner? What happened? Somebody said to me on the way in, what was the traffic like? Let that all just be there. You don't have to get rid of it. Just let it be there. And just keep focusing on your breath. See where you can try and tune into where your breath is most obvious to you. It might be at your stomach, in which case you could put your hand on your stomach and feel your stomach go in and out. It may be at your nostril. You might feel the air coming in and going out, coming in and going out. So just for a moment, I want you to just focus on your breath. Going in, going out. If your mind wanders, it's absolutely okay. Just immediately, as soon as you're aware that your mind wandered, bring your mind back to your breath. And going in and out. If your mind wanders again, it's fine. Immediately, as soon as you realize, bring your attention back to your breath. In and out. In and out. Okay, I'm going to get you to stop. Thank you. Does anyone want to shout out what they experienced? And it was very brief and I was talking non-stop. So can anyone just shout out their experience? Peaceful. Thank you. Silent. Good. Calm. Good. Did anyone feel stressed and frustrated with all the thoughts in their head? No? Really? Wow. Seriously, nobody experienced, everyone relaxed in 2 minutes. Can anyone put their hands up if they did not relax? Yeah, that's what I do. That's more normal experience. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. Again, as I said, this is not a place for shame. This is normal. The people who relax, brilliant. What I'd ask them is, could you do that for 30 minutes, constantly?
Yeah.
How many people could? Brilliant, but very minority, people who are quite experienced in meditation as well. So it's normal for majority of us in today's society for our minds to wander, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just going to show you some evidence why it's okay. So in our brains, these are MRI scans, so in our brains we have something called the amygdala, which is a little kind of small, kind of that big size part of our brain, and it's kind of down in the middle of our brain. And what happened was, in our ancestors, so hundreds of thousands of years ago when they were in jungles or wherever, if, generally they're relaxing, they're just resting, suddenly a lion comes. So has anyone heard of fight or flight response? Yeah? So that's triggered by the amygdala. So what happens is, a lion comes, so our ancestors, lion comes now, that's not the time to think about, should I run away, shouldn't I? Or have long discussions with the lion, do you want to eat me or not? It's kind of, you need instant response. So either I'm going to fight this or probably run away. So your amygdala releases hormones like cortisol, adrenaline instantly, you get a rush, you get the symptoms that Arjun had, so like, dry mouth, you're struggling, your blood rushes to your muscles, you can't think properly, all this happens, so your body is getting ready to fight or run away. Now, unfortunately, through evolution, we haven't had that long through evolution to have new brains, but we have different societies. So what's the biggest threat to most of us these days? I'm going to go back to my social media example. Somebody didn't like my post on Facebook, maybe? It is, it triggers our amygdala. Something like that causes our amygdala to release adrenaline, cortisol. Our amygdala doesn't communicate with the more developed parts of our brains, for example, called the prefrontal cortex, which is here, just kind of behind your eyebrows. It doesn't communicate with that, so you can't reason with your amygdala. You can't, उसे समझा नहीं सकते कि हाँ चुप हो जाओ, शांत हो जाओ, lion नहीं आ रहा. You can't do that. It's just going to fire, and that's it. You can't do anything else. So we almost become slaves to the amygdala. Something happens, there's traffic, I might be late for my presentation, or oh no, the food's cold, or something happens, or somebody's just fallen asleep in my talk, and amygdala fires, oh no, disaster. But actually it's not the end of the world, and if I try and calm myself down, talk to my amygdala, it's not going to work. But evidence shows, and this is what I was saying earlier, we can use our minds to change our brains. Evidence shows we can do that. That if you do mindfulness, and again I'm quoting mindfulness because that's the one that people have done research on, it doesn't mean that our meditations don't work. I'm sure they do. But mindfulness has been shown that if you do only about 30 minutes a day for 30 days, you shrink the amygdala. And also you make it less powerful, basically. Something that evolution couldn't do. So actually, on the right side, you may not know this, but on the right side it's showing is a functional MRI, which means it's showing less activity in the amygdala. So it's in your hands, you can change your brain. Now, moving on from it, so I mentioned meditation is one thing that you may be prescribed in the NHS, especially mindfulness. But other things you may be prescribed if you are, or you may receive, if you do receive help from mental health services. You may receive talking treatments, and as I mentioned, that's my area that I'm particularly interested in. One of my favorites is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which looks at the here and now and changes the way that you think and behave in order to change the way that you feel. The psychodynamic psychotherapy, which looks more at your relationships and your past, your childhood, and how that's affecting you today. There's family therapy, because often, none of us exist on our own. There are our surroundings. They cause a lot of impact on our mental health. There's a SUN model, Service User Network or Patient Support Network, which is the one that I'm clinical lead for and that I'm setting up. Mentalization-based treatment is also used, as well as the SUN, for personality disorders. Schema-focused therapy is also, again, changing our kind of concept of how we see things. You may be prescribed medication on GP level or from mental health services. I'm not going to go into that today because I thought that's more for another day, but if people are interested, we can talk about that later. And I went into more medical psychotherapy because I found that medications were often giving people side effects. But having trained in psychotherapies, I do strongly believe there is a time and place for medication as well. But if you can do without it, it's good. But if you can't, that's fine. We take medication for physical problems, so why not for, our body doesn't know the difference between here and there. Also in mental health services, we look at your social circumstances, we look at your environment. So if you're students, we look at your studies. Do you need more time to prepare for a particular assignment? What's going on at home for you? Are you a carer for somebody, like a parent? Look at your surroundings as well. It's not just purely about the medication side of things. Now, I mentioned in talking treatments, I mentioned cognitive behavioral therapy. That easily I could do a whole series on. So I'm just going to give you a few bits from it today. So earlier on we talked about keeping busy, but not too busy. And I already talked about various things from our traditions that are relevant to our daily lifestyle. So one thing that is, again, evidence-based from cognitive behavioral therapy is the use of an activity schedule. So I've got a whole stack of them with me. So I brought a few, so I'll put them outside, so if anyone would like one, you can take one. But basically, the main two ways I would say that you could use them, and they're evidence-based to get rid of depression, essentially. We can use them, all of these, as preventative things as well. One thing is you can fill in what you do roughly every hour, just one word, and it gives you a good view of actually where your time goes. Because often we think it's going somewhere, but actually we spend it totally differently. You can also think about, I mentioned spend time on things that make you feel good about yourself and things you enjoy. They get rid of depression. I'm not saying you do that all the time, but make sure you can have a look in your schedule. You can rate each thing you did, maybe on a scale of 0 to 10. How good did that make me feel about me? And also, what sense of achievement did I have? Because that's really important as well. And then what you can do is you can get another sheet and plan in, timetable in, things that you really want to do, that you really want to achieve. Not too much, remember, just doable. But also things that make you feel good about yourself and things that make you get a sense of achievement. Timetable them in. Because you've all come to this with timetable for 6:30. But just imagine if I said, you can come whenever in the next year. How many people would be here at 6:30 today? So when we have an appointment, we're more likely to get it done. So it's about making an appointment with yourself for the things that nurture you, nourish you, make your health better, your mental health better. Now, finally, I'm going to come to my main two favorite topics. What we need to fight in this world and who we need to be in this world. So first of all, who do we need to fight? In my view, our main enemy while we're on this planet is our thoughts. Our thoughts are our biggest enemy. So what are thoughts? Can anyone just say maybe one person put your hand up, what are thoughts? Anyone, guess?
Expression of desire.
Expression of desires. It could be expression of our feelings. Yes? Pardon?
It's imaginary.
Imaginary illusions. Brilliant. So you're getting to where I want. So exactly. So essentially, in psychiatry, anyway, we believe So I'm going to go with that rule of thought that we weren't, or generally it's believed these days, that we weren't born, or maybe as a disclaimer I should say these are my beliefs, we weren't born with thoughts, generally. If you look at a baby, like Jitenji said before, babies are generally quite happy, they don't have anger and so on. Babies don't have thoughts, generally, as far as we can tell, on brain imaging as well, brain scans. Our thoughts generally are a result of our world experiences and what we've been taught. So if I was brought up in Africa, in a jungle, my view of what's important for me to do today might be very different to being brought up in Nottingham. Or if I was brought up in a Christian family, maybe my thoughts would be different to if I'm brought up in a Hindu family, and so on. So our thoughts are often dictated by our world, by our teachers, our parents, whoever is influential in our life. For students, our peers, our friends. So for children, have a huge influence on us. So, and media. So if you think about it, thoughts are not reality. Thoughts are our kind of interpretation of reality, but they're not reality. And I'll go into that in a bit later. The Bhagavad Gita puts a huge emphasis on this. And we talk about Maya in our faith as well. That's a similar thing. So we talk about illusion. That's very different. So in this context, when I'm talking about it, Maya can mean that, it's an illusion. So it's really important to challenge our thoughts. Just as a side issue, if you find challenging your thoughts too exhausting, because we have around 80,000 thoughts a day, an average person. So how are you going to challenge 80,000 thoughts a day? Then that's where meditation comes in. You just kind of try and get away from all thoughts, or let them be there and do your own thing. Try and get rid of them probably doesn't work either. We'll just spend about 30 seconds on this exercise. What I want you to do is, for the next 30 seconds, I want you to do anything apart from think of a pink elephant. Do not think of a pink elephant. Do not think of a pink elephant. Do not think of a pink elephant, especially not a pink elephant with a pink frock and gold hair and dancing. Do not think of that. Whatever you do, you must not think of a pink elephant. Do not think of a pink elephant dancing, doing twirls. Do not think of this pink elephant staring at you. Yes, make sure that you're not thinking of a pink elephant. You must not. Okay, that's probably 30 seconds. What happened?
Why are you keep saying pink, pink, pink?
Because that's what happens, doesn't it? When we say do not think of something, we're actually saying
If
to
you would have
ourselves...
so said once and quiet, we would have at least concentrated on black elephant. Now you keep insisting.
But is that what we do to ourselves? But if I said to myself, that person spoke to me horribly today, I'm not going to think of that, I must not think of that. We don't do that. We don't let go of things, do we? We keep reminding ourselves, I must not think of that, I must not think of that. Well, I know what you're saying, but often, if we do that, that's a very advanced level. Normally, most people, I say meditate, don't think of anything, it's not going to work. Then you think, I must not think, I must not think. So, if you can get to that stage, that's very good.
That's the reason.
That's very
don't
good.
smoke, alcohol is injurious, keep
Yes.
writing.
Yes.
Don't write, don't say anything.
I agree.
People will forget.
Yes.
You means not you, the
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
It is advertising to remember that.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I have lots of views on that. I completely agree with you. I had a long discussion a couple of days ago on that. So,
Stop your thoughts, but you can change your thoughts.
yes, so we're going to, very good. So we can't stop our thoughts. We can accept them and do our own thing, which is meditation. We can change them. So cognitive behavioral therapy. So I know we started a bit late, so are we okay? 5 more minutes? Thank you. So if I can have, could I have another volunteer, please? We'll spend about 5 minutes. Will you be able to write on that? I'd love for you to come. Or can Akshita Devi come with you? Yeah? Brilliant.
So, Lavanya, can you just one?
So what I want you to do is imagine you're walking down the road, you see someone you know, they looked at you, then they looked the other way and walked off. Now I want you to tell me how you feel. Put your hands up, I'm just going to pick maybe 5 people. So just put your hands up if you'd like to share how you would feel. Sorry, we've got, put your hands up please. We had one is feel bad, So one feeling we've had is feeling bad. Yeah, good. Thanks, Akshita. So one more feeling. Feeling. How would you feel though?
Angry.
Can we have hands up? Sorry, but okay, we've got angry. Yes. Any other feelings? Sad. If you feel ignored, how would you feel?
Not interested.
Discarded, rejected. Okay, rejected. Hand here, Preeti.
I will worry about them.
Okay, but that's again. How would you feel though? Anxious? Anxious? Okay. Well, let's have one more then.
Sometimes you feel, what have I done wrong?
Okay, so we'll come to that in a minute. So, guilt. We had one at the back. I really like that one. Don't get you feel fine. Yeah, that's another one. Feel fine. Good. We've got one more there.
Sorry.
Pardon?
You're self-conscious.
Self-conscious. Okay, thank you. Brilliant. Okay, so do you notice how the situation was the same situation for everyone? But we've got a whole range of feelings. And one of them is fine. Yeah? Different feelings. So that makes me think maybe the situation didn't make us feel that way. You know how we often say, somebody behaved this way, therefore I felt this way. But how much control do you have on situations? Not much. But actually that's great, because we don't need to. Because it's not situations that make us feel the way we do. We've got evidence there. We've got the same situation. Think of snow. Some people love snow, some people hate snow. Snow is snow. It's not good or bad. So similarly here, the situation is a situation. Feelings were different. Now we can't change our feelings directly either unless you take drugs or something. So in a healthy way, we can't change our feelings directly. But a position of power is our thoughts. So now I want to go around those same people and ask, what were you thinking? So let's start with the people feeling bad. What was going through your mind? So what are you thinking?
Just thinking that, sort of about the situation.
So they've looked at you, looked the other way and walked off. What are you thinking? Or can somebody else who might feel bad, what might you think?
Rejection.
What have I done? Do they hate me? So what have I done? Do they hate me?
Or am I looking so funny?
Am I looking funny? Is there something wrong with me? Okay, people who were feeling anxious, what was going through your mind?
I was worried if they are okay.
Okay, concerned about them.
Yeah.
So yes, worried about them. So that's very different. So that leads to a different feeling. People who are feeling sad, what's going through your mind?
Have I lost a friend?
Have I lost a friend? Yes. People are feeling angry, what's going through your mind?
Are they afraid of you?
Are they afraid of me? Okay. And if you're angry, what are you thinking?
What does she think of herself?
What does she think of herself? Sorry? What's her problem?
They haven't got the glasses today.
Yeah. Yeah? It might, what about the person who said, I don't care? What's going through your mind?
I really don't care. The person was thinking what their mental situation is, what their circumstances are, so I really don't care.
Okay, so you might not care about other people's thoughts, yes?
My mind is my sanctorum, so it's my responsibility to keep it pristine.
Okay, so your thinking is, my mind is my responsibility, I don't want it affected by other people. Yeah? Good. People feeling rejected, what are you thinking? And what's going through your mind though? What are you... Yeah,
It's feeling worthless.
okay.
Less
Yeah.
worthy, not wanting.
So I'm less worthy, yes? That could be one. Okay, brilliant. So can you see how different people had different thoughts, which led to different feelings? The situation is the same.
One question.
Yes.
Is it two persons known to each other or unknown?
No.
Huh?
No.
Known, okay.
But that's a good question.
fine.
That's a good question because again,
Yeah.
you may all
If it is unknown, we can say leave it, man.
Yeah.
Who are we?
Yeah, but can you see how some people think it's nothing to do with me and don't care, they feel fine. Some people are worried about, is the person okay, and feel concerned and worried. Some people feel, what's their problem? They feel angry. Some people say, is there something wrong with me? And they feel sad or bad. So it's not, but the situation is the same, so you can't blame the situation. It's our thoughts that lead to our feelings. So that's the position of power, to change our thoughts. And then it leads to different actions. We'll do this really, really quickly. So the people who feel, what's his problem and angry, what might you do next?
Give them a benefit of doubt.
You might give them a benefit?
They are busy thinking of something.
Okay, so you might talk to them. What would you actually do in real life?
Give them the space.
So you might give them space. Other angry people, what might you do?
Try to give smile.
Try to smile, good. Other angry people? Talk to them in a nice way or not? Nice way if you're angry. No? Okay, can we have, if you're angry, what might you do? Ignore them, yes. Yeah. Ignore them next time you see them. Yeah? What about people who are feeling sad? What might you do next time? Okay, we've got very enlightened people here. The majority of people, what might you do if you're feeling sad? Next time, what might you do? Or even now? Cry? Okay. You might ask them, okay. What else might you do?
Try and avoid situations where you might meet them.
Yeah, try and avoid them, yes. What about people who didn't care? What might you do? Yeah, behave exactly the same. Don't change your behavior. People who felt concerned about them, what might you do? Talk to them, ask them. Brilliant. Now, I've added, in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, it just goes down. I've added my own arrow back because I believe, and I know a lot of people believe this, that our thoughts lead to our lives. Because our thought, if you can see, the situation did not lead to anything. Our thoughts led to our emotions, which then lead to our actions. Because everyone's got different actions depending on how they thought. Now, imagine if I said to you, that person, they wore glasses and they forgot to put their glasses on that day. Or they wore contacts and forgot to put their contacts in that day. Yeah? So imagine those of you who've avoided them for the rest of your lives. Those of them who are going to ignore them next time. Those of you who are going to go home and cry. Those of you, yeah? So unnecessarily. Thank you, Lavanya. Thank you, Akshita. Thank you so much. So can you see that it depends on what we're thinking, that leads to our actions, that leads to our feelings, that leads to our lives. So then your destiny is determined by your thoughts. You could be best friends or totally enemies with this person just based on what you thought. Yeah? Okay. So basically that's just a kind of fun example, but actually we can use this in all areas of our lives. And as again I'm going to come back to, you can use your mind to change your brain. So with neuroplasticity, we have a lot of evidence these days that what you practice grows stronger. You can recreate your brain in as little as a few weeks. And it doesn't matter how old you are. We used to believe that after the age of 18 or whatever, you can't change your brain. But these days it's proven you can change your brain at any age. By changing your thinking repeatedly, you can change the brain networks in your brain. You can change the brain networks. You can make different networks stronger, different weaker. So they did a study on London taxi drivers actually, and they found that the parts of their brain that are used in reading maps, they are a lot greater than than most people. So whatever you do more and more and more, that part of your brain gets stronger and bigger, and what you do less of as well, that gets weaker. So we are in charge of our brains. So you can decide today, what do you want your brain to look like? What do you want to practice? What do you want to grow? Because whatever you will do, your brain will turn into that, and that will then control you. You do it for 30 days. Today you do one action. I guarantee if you do it for 30 days, 31st day, it will do it to you. You won't have to do it. You'll just do it automatically. So decide whether you want that to be in the positive or negative, including in the field of thoughts. And then absolute finally, so I said I'm going to talk about what we need to fight, but also who we need to be. So people have mentioned identity on that, on the earlier one, when we talked about your concerns and issues. And identity is really important. And as students at that age, I think it becomes extra confusing, as people mentioned, as to who we really are. And then being in a country which is different to of our ancestral origin as well, that can become more confusing. And these days with media the way it is, and with political correctness, people can get even more confused. So who are you really? Are you your family? Well, who's your identity linked to? Who are you defined by? Are you defined by your role? Are you a student? Is that who you are? Are you your studies? Are you your grades? Are you what you look like? Are you your friends? Are you defined by your friends? Are you defined by a sport? Are you defined by your faith? By your religion? What are you defined by? And as I was saying, political correctness these days means you're having to make all kinds of things. Who am I? You have to think about, are you going to marry a boy or a girl? Are you going to take drugs or not? What are you going to do? So these are all things that today's society is adding to confusion. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to raise these issues. It's absolutely fine, but it's leading to confusion where there wasn't any confusion at one point. In my experience in my work, and my belief strongly, is that most mental illness and most suffering that I see is where people put their identity, attach that and their worth onto something external. When you say you're defined by something external to you, then, or defined by anything really, then you get problems and the suffering. So I went to a conference for the mental health of athletes, and there most of the athletes who actually suffered with mental health problems were ones where they attached their, for example, winning the Olympics or getting a gold onto they attached their worth onto that. The ones who actually said, you know what, I'm okay as a person even if I don't win this. I would love to win. I would love to get gold in the Olympics. It would be amazing. I'll be happy. But if I don't, I'm still an okay person in myself. My worth doesn't change. Even if I don't get the top mark, I'm still okay. Even if, God forbid, you lose your looks in an accident or something, you're still an okay person. Even if all your friends desert you, it doesn't change your worth. Even if you get all the likes on Facebook, your worth doesn't increase. Then you're safe mentally. Then nobody can touch you, nobody can harm you. And again, Bhagavad Gita talks a lot about self and being separate and being content in yourself. And so I would really, really like to emphasize that. If you think about it, afterwards, if the sky is clear, look in the sky, you'll see the moon, you'll see stars. They're all made by God, aren't they? They're all parts of the universe. So are you. We all are. We're all parts of the universe. We're all made by God. So we are as special as each star that we see out there. And therefore, just remember that. Nobody on this planet can give you worth or take away your worth. So just to recap, I hope, as I said, it's just a very quick tour of this area. I hope that I've addressed most of the concerns that we discussed before. Now we're going to have time for questions as well. And I hope that I've given you some idea of some facts and also some sources of help for you. I'm just going to leave a list of some sources of help here. We were just going to do a few lines of a button really quickly, thank you. And then we'll have time for questions, I understand. Yeah, just one verse.
सिर पर सीताराम फिकर फिर क्या करना सिर पर सीताराम फिकर फिर क्या सिर पर सीताराम फिकर फिर क्या करना.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Devika. That was an amazing run through mental disorders, starting from stress, trauma, mental disorders, and then eventually took us through various bits of therapy, and finally the key bit is your thoughts. But anyway, so questions then. Any questions from you? There you go, there's a student there.
Yes.
You said a lot about how...
If you could just say your name as well, please. Anand. Hi, Anand. That's
Namaste. About how external factors should influence how we feel as an individual. So like if I gave you an example, if my family didn't like me, for example, that would affect my internal validity. So like, how do you get to that stage where external factors, because 100% of my friends or family didn't like me for whatever reason, that would 100% affect me?
Yeah. So I don't mean it shouldn't affect you, it will. And actually, like the pink elephant exercise, if you actually say this should not happen, it will happen more. So it's about accepting that yes, somewhere my worth has been put on there. So what I'm actually saying is kind of an ideal world. We're in this society where, unfortunately, we're brought up to believe these kind of things. In an ideal world, we'll go to all newborn babies and train them completely differently, so that by the time they're this age, they don't have these problems. But what I'm saying is that the suffering I've seen is where your worth is is actually dependent on something external. So ideally, what I would advise is them saying, okay, I'm in the situation where I do believe my worth is dependent on them, but maybe I can draw a diagram, maybe a pie chart. Are you familiar with pie charts? So like a circle, and put little sections in it and say, okay, how much of me is actually defined by my family and my parents' approval? What else contributes to who I am? Is there anything else that's good about me? If I had no approval from my parents, would I still be a worthy person? And if you can't think of anything, ask someone who cares about you. And if you still can't, think of someone that you care about and pretend that they're in your position. What advice would you give to them? Does that help? Yeah.
Next, there's somebody else. Next question, here, David.
Is there anything called as a negative stress and a positive stress? Because I understand in business, positive stress is essential to go further.
So, as you just mentioned earlier as well, there's actually a graph which I may draw it, but it'd be like a bell, so like that. So a bit of stress is necessary. So if we have no stress, then we become lazy, we don't do anything, we kind of lie in bed. We need a little bit of stress, but once it goes above, then our performance decreases. But actually in our lives, in our society, most of us have enough stress. I've come across very few people who have too little stress. So actually in our society, that bell, most of us are already close to the peak. At least, or most of us are actually over the peak. So life is going to happen, but we can find ways to shrink our amygdala or control it. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Pardon?
No more questions?
Yes.
One more.
I think one thing we didn't touch on today was reality television. There's certain programs, e.g. Love Island, that I feel needs to be addressed as well. So reality TV is a big thing.
So again, in our society, we have reality TV, which is, thank you for raising that, that's a very important point. And again, it's like social media again, that if you view it as, okay, this is a tiny percentage of people who were lucky enough to like win the lottery and get to that position, then it's okay. But if you start thinking, this is what life is, this is, all I have to do is kind of dance a few times or sing a totally out of tune song and become super famous. That's not how the real world is. It's a very tiny proportion of people. But also these things, again, can become addictive. So, like social media, the companies, they're going to make money by how many people watch these programs. So they're going to make them, I try not to watch reality shows because I know if you do, you kind of find that you're hooked and you want to watch more and more. But with most things, if you're watching it and you can make a choice about whether to watch it or not, then you're probably healthy. It's fine, it's entertainment. But if it's like, I must watch it, otherwise, I have to sacrifice everything else to watch it, then it's probably not so good. Does that answer your question, or did you have other? Yeah, nothing I've said is, a directive, you must or must not do this. That itself is not helpful. It's about, okay, if I'm suffering in this area of my life, what can I change in order to make things a bit more kind of stabilized? So that's when it's often down to parents, or it's down to maybe society just accepting that this is the world we're in, where children have mobile phones, they have access to all kinds of apps, internet, reality TV, and then thinking, okay, accepting this, because as I said, the children and the youngsters today have a very different life experience and environment than a lot of people may have had maybe a generation or 2 generations before, even 3. So just being aware of that and thinking, okay, we're not going to label everyone with mental illness, but what kind of measures do we need to take? What do we need to look out for? I mean, on the good side, at least people are becoming more aware of mental illness and it's more acceptable to talk about it now.
Why is it becoming so concerned nowadays? Like, for example, when we were small, we used to get smacks, from the parents say, "Dant pad gaya, kuch ho gaya." why the kids are really taking it too much in their head now. Yeah. As you said, the abuse side of it. Why you need counseling in the school and stuff like that?
Okay. So I'm not going to say for or against hitting a child, but it's also about it's the perception. So I'm not saying everyone who's been hit once by their parent has been abused. I'm not saying that. I'm saying about people who've been regularly beaten up, and remember the intention behind it as well. So even generations before, there were abusive parents. It did happen. So there was domestic violence. All of these things I'm talking about used to happen before. It's just talked about more these days. In fact, people think that if I mention something, social services will take my child away. It's not like that. Because I work in, from the other side, we want sometimes for social services to take children and they don't. So it's not like that. For the children's safety, so it's not quite like that. We've got other doctors laughing at that as well. So it's not as simple as that. But what happens is, I think we need to strike, in my opinion today, youngsters have other problems that previously young people didn't have. But also what it means is that we can talk more openly about mental illness, which is a very positive thing. But it can be abused and just anyone can be labelled with mental illness.
Tells a friend tells you something confidential about their mental health and asks you not to tell anyone, do you see it's important? At what stage do you go and tell someone?
Okay. So as a friend, you're not bound by any legal confidentiality, you're bound by your morals and ethics. So, but as a doctor, what I would say is if I think that legally, I'm bound by confidentiality. But if I felt that that piece of information either puts that individual at risk, in danger, or puts somebody else in danger, then I would break that confidentiality. So, it's hard for me to advise a friend, because you're not bound by anything. You can, friends you're not bound by anything legal, you're bound by friendship, aren't you? But you're also bound by friendship in terms of wanting to help them as well. So my guidance would be to kind of trust your heart and think, okay, my instinct, what's my instinct telling me? Am I keeping it a secret to make me feel better or to make them feel better? And if I tell someone, am I telling someone to make me feel better or make them feel better? And I would say a good rule of thumb is if you're doing it to make you feel better, probably don't do it. If you're doing it to make them feel better, not feel better, do it in their best interest, do it to help them, then it's probably a good line of action to take.
I'm going to ask you a last question, if that's all right then.
Sure.
Because we're here to learn from you. How do you look after yourself?
I have lots of, okay, so one thing is I have lots of support, which is amazing, including most of you guys here. So that is definitely one. So as I said, not being on your own. So, sorry, I just want to go back to yourself one moment. You may want to contact one of these organizations as well, it may help you. And also I've got those sheets to give out afterwards if anyone's interested. In terms of activity diary. So one thing is definitely support, as I mentioned, is very good. I do meditate. I think, as I mentioned, most of the things in there are really important. So exercise, you don't have to be involved in faith, but if you are, it can help you. Sense of a community, sense of belonging, enjoying yourself as well, getting a sense of achievement, but also doing things that make you feel good about yourself. I think also trying to be mindful of when you put your worth on external objects and when you don't, and remembering who you are. You're not your thoughts. You're not your thoughts, and you don't deserve any shame, any of you here, whatever you're suffering with. In terms of as a psychiatrist, we have lots and lots of training. I didn't just end up as a consultant, we have lots and lots of training. We actually, the stuff that we see, sometimes somebody has to come from outside work, from a different department, because the field I work in, personality disorders, is one of the most challenging, I think, within mental health. And so sometimes people come from other departments and say, this is really strange, the stuff you're dealing with, but when you do it every day, it kind of becomes part of your life. And I think for me, the reason why I do this work is because it doesn't matter how bad a day you're having, and as I said before, we all have good and bad days, that's normal. If you make even one patient, if I make even one patient feel good, they come in crying and leave smiling, that's my weakest good then after that. So that's why I do this. Thank you. Thank you for listening, everyone.